Mangwanani Mwalelepo Vukenjani Klekwas Vanave Africa. Welcome to Africa. Good morning with Ashwin Berry and Diana Master. You know, Diana, I realized I always greet like the broader Africa. Sometimes I don't greet just the people around us in our communities. To the people of Grootfontein, a shout out from one of your daughters, Kaya Amoteng. You know what I mean? And you're allowed to do that. Please, in the comments, if you want us to shout out your local town, you know, your people, it would be great because it's a community. Of course, we are observing the news as the whole of Africa.
Now, Ashwin, I have to say I was not expecting that at all.
And neither were the people of Grootfontein, but thank goodness they have Kaya.
Neither was Kaya, hey? Now let's get into what you can expect in today's broadcast. Mastermind of foiled Gambia coup, jailed for 12 years. Bolivia severs ties with Israel. Others recall envoys over Gaza. And North Korea closes multiple embassies around the world. We'll also be bringing you news from Zimbabwe a little later on in the show with Talent Gore. For now, we'll take a quick break and return with our top stories.
Welcome to What's Cooking, where culinary passion meets expert insights.
Somebody must really want to cook and want to cook good food.
Immerse yourself in the bustling world of professional kitchens as top chefs create mouthwatering dishes. Join us for in-depth interviews as our host explores the experiences and expertise of our guest chefs. Don't miss out. Tune in to What's Cooking on NTV every Friday at 2100 hours and let the culinary adventure begin.
Getting into our top stories. A junior officer, Navy officer, named by the Gambia's government as a mastermind of a foiled coup plot in December last year, has been found guilty of treason and sentenced to 12 years in prison. A high court on Tuesday ruled that Lance Corporal Sana Fadera planned and attempted to unlawfully overthrow the democratically elected government of President Adama Barrow. Authorities had charged Fadera and 7 other soldiers with treason, conspiracy, and inciting mutiny for their alleged role in the 2022 coup attempt. The court acquitted 3 other military officers on Tuesday. Another soldier has been on the run since the foiled coup attempt and is considered a fugitive. The court also acquitted a police officer and 2 civilians who had been charged with concealing treason and conspiring to commit felony.
Bolivia said on Tuesday it had broken diplomatic ties with Israel because of its attacks on the Gaza Strip, while neighbors Colombia and Chile recalled the ambassadors to the Middle Eastern country for consultations. The 3 South American nations lambasted Israel's attacks on Gaza and condemned the deaths of Palestinian citizens. Bolivia decided to break diplomatic relations with the Israeli state in repudiation and condemnation of the aggressive and disproportionate Israeli military offensive taking place in the Gaza Strip. Deputy Foreign Minister Freddie Mamani said at a press conference. The 3 countries called for a ceasefire, with Bolivia and Chile pushing for the passage of humanitarian aid into the zone and accusing Israel of violating international law. Colombian President Gustavo Petro called the attacks a massacre of the Palestinian people in a post on the social media network X. Israel's foreign ministry did not immediately respond to a request for comment.
Now, North Korea is poised to close as many as a dozen embassies, including Spain, Hong Kong, and multiple countries in Africa, according to media reports and analysts, in a move that could see nearly 25% of Pyongyang's missions close worldwide. North Korea's recent closing of its diplomatic missions was a sign that the reclusive country is struggling to make money overseas because of international sanctions, South Korea's Unification Ministry said on Tuesday. On Monday, North Korean state media outlet KCNA said the country's ambassadors paid farewell visits to Angolan and Ugandan leaders last week, and local media in both African countries reported the shutdown of the North's embassies there. Both Angola and Uganda have forged friendly ties with North Korea since 1970s, maintaining military cooperation and providing rare sources of foreign currency.
A Ugandan court has ordered a U.S. couple to pay their foster child about $26,000 in compensation after convicting them of cruel, inhumane, or degrading treatment. The compensation resulted from a plea deal which led to the court dropping charges of aggravated trafficking and torture that could have led to the 2 being sentenced to life imprisonment or the death penalty. The couple, Nicholas and Mackenzie Spencer, were arrested last year and charged with torturing the 10-year-old boy over 2 years. This is after the child's nanny filed a police report alleging that the couple repeatedly subjected the child to inhumane treatment. On On Tuesday, they pleaded guilty to the charges of cruel, inhumane or degrading treatment, working without permits and staying in Uganda unlawfully, for which they were fined 4.86 million Ugandan shillings. But Tuesday's ruling has angered some child rights activists who termed it a mockery of justice. Activist Proskovia Najumba questioned how the court allowed the couple to walk away after accepting they had mistreated a child, the AFP news agency reported.
Now, there can be no excuses for the atrocities committed against Kenyans during British colonial rule, King Charles III said on Tuesday in the East African country, but did not ask for forgiveness as some had demanded. Abhorrent and unjustifiable acts of violence were committed against Kenyans while they were waging a painful struggle for independence and sovereignty, and for that there can be no excuse, the British monarch said at a state dinner hosted by Kenyan President William Ruto. Charles III said he hoped to meet some of those whose lives and whose communities were so badly affected by colonial abuse. Well, from one former colony to another, we'll be talking to Talent Gore in Zimbabwe after the break.
Welcome to What's Cooking, where culinary passion meets expert insights.
Somebody must really want to cook and want to cook good food.
Immerse yourself in the bustling world of professional kitchens as top chefs create mouthwatering dishes. Join us for in-depth interviews as our host explores the experiences and expertise of our guest chefs. Don't miss out. Tune in to What's Cooking on NTV every Friday at 2100 hours and let the culinary adventure begin.
All right, so a CCC member of Parliament, Gaza, has been abducted and tortured. This happened just yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. Of course, it's not the first time we've seen this happen in Zimbabwe, but Talent Gore is here to shed more light on this story. Talent Wamukase, please take us into your first story.
So Zimbabwe's youngest member of parliament, who is 24 years, Takudzo Ngadzore, was yesterday abducted by men armed with AK-47s in a suspected case of politically motivated persecution of disseminating voices. Ngadzore only managed to record a 7-minute video on Facebook notifying people that he was being followed. He was found tortured and naked, allegedly injected with an unknown substance before being dumped at Kristen Bank in Mazowe, which is about 22 kilometers out of Harare. After Ngadzore quickly filmed a live video before being abducted yesterday morning by state agents wielding AK-47s. Apparently, this was said by the CCC, which is the Citizens Coalition for Change. They are alleging that the men that abducted Ngadzore are state agents. We do not know whether it's true or not, but this is what they are saying. And right now, Ngadzore is in hospital. When he was abducted, he was on his way to Parliament yesterday. Apparently, there was a parliament session yesterday in the new parliament building in Mount Hampton. So he was on his way there. That is when the men started following him. And the only thing that he managed to do was to record these men, and he was to record this men and actually notify Zimbabweans on Facebook that he was being followed. And he also recorded the men, 2 men holding AK-47s. Trying to get to him, and that is the moment that he was abducted. And from then onwards, no one heard from him, but well-wishers then saw him in Kristen Bank naked, and he was bruised all over and was taken to the hospital.
All right, now Talent, WHO flags spike in Zim depression and suicide cases. That is quite concerning.
Yes, apparently Zimbabwe is experiencing high depression and suicide rates among adults compared to other African countries. Well, this is according to the World Health Organization. According to a research conducted by mental health institutions, the main causes of mental health issues in Zimbabwe were socio-economic instabilities and marital problems, who also say that comorbidity of people living with HIV and AIDS and or tuberculosis with mental health conditions was also common. Zimbabwe's people experience higher rates of depression and suicide among older adults compared with other African countries. Well, this is according to the World Health Organization.
Certainly something that should be kept an eye on, including the next story. So, of course, Zimbabwe has the worst inflation rate in the world, which naturally usually means that the economy itself is simply not workable for most ordinary Zimbabweans, which is also which results in a lot of them going into the UK to become care workers just to figure out a way to survive to the next day. Now, there are reports that these very same desperate, in the most circumstances, care workers are being abused in the United Kingdom. Talent?
Yes, since 2021, about 4,000 plus people have, nurses to be precise, and other professionals, they have migrated Zimbabwe to the United Kingdom. And right now, Zimbabweans have been cited among the foreigners being exploited in the United Kingdom's care work sector, a recent survey has reviewed. Apparently, most of these people who are going there, they do not have permanent contracts and they do not have proper working stations, so they are being exploited. Some of them, they are going to the UK, they find work in the UK, and the company which is in the UK then processes their visas, their CSOs and accommodation and everything. So when they then get to the UK, the money that they are receiving when they are working, they are just paying it back to them, to the company that brought them to the UK. So you find out that most of them, they do not have much, they are not earning much, and that little money that they are earning, they are just paying back the debt that they own. So about the most foreigners who are in the UK who are working as care workers, they are Zimbabweans and Nigerians. About 1.2 million of those people are Indians, Zimbabweans, and Nigerians. So it is quite sad that people are actually leaving for the UK and they are subjected to such working conditions whereby they are not given anything. They do not have money to send back home, because the reason why they are leaving for the UK is to earn a living and actually send back home money, but they can't afford to do that because they are not earning much back there.
And you know, it's not just Zimbabweans that are subjected to this abuse. Apparently, many African nationals that are departing for the UK are also facing abuse, you know, when they leave to go do some care work.
Yeah, and I mean, perhaps at some point in time, the Zimbabwean government needs to ask itself that if after independence, 1980 to be exact, people resort to going back to the former colonizer in order to survive, how good of a job have you done? Thank you, Talent Gore, for bringing us the news stories from Zimbabwe.
I mean, thank you very much for having me.
It's always a pleasure having Talent on Africa. Good morning. Now let's take a look at the weather predictions before we return with our economic news.
All right, heading into economic news, U.S. President Joe Biden's administration on Tuesday approved a plan to build the United States' largest ever offshore wind farm, which would power hundreds of thousands of homes with clean energy. Dominion Energy's Coastal Virginia offshore wind project is located 23.5 nautical miles off Virginia Beach and marks the fifth such offshore wind plan under the Biden administration, which has come under fire from environmentalists for greenlighting several new major fossil fuel leases. Interior Secretary Deb Haaland said in a statement the decision demonstrated the government's commitment to the clean energy future, adding it would respond to the climate crisis, lower energy costs, and create new jobs.
Kenyans are protesting a directive by the revenue authorities seeking to tax personal or household items worth $500 and above from visiting tourists and citizens returning to the country. The Kenya Revenue Authority says all goods, whether new or used over that amount, are subject to taxation. The directive has sparked a public outcry, with many Kenyans saying that the move would scare away tourists. A section of MPs said some KRA officials have been taking advantage of the directive to harass tourists, giving the country bad publicity. Tourism Minister Alfred Mutua described the KRA move as one of the reasons the number of tourists visiting the country has been declining. It is the latest in a series of new taxes introduced by President William Ruto's government, blamed on the worsening the cost of living in the country.
All right, those have been our economic news stories. Let's head to the indicators. So Nunes continues to prove his magic for Liverpool, managing to scrape a 2-1 win for the club in the Carabao Cup. Arsenal lost 3-1, which is a disappointing result, particularly for Declan Rice, who was revisiting his old club. But it happens. It really does happen. But it seems to keep happening to Manchester United, who at home 2 games in a row have lost 3-0. But here's Ari Hohad with more sports news.
Good day everyone, time for international sports news, and starting off with tennis news first. There's tournaments being played on the WTA, the women's side of the draw first, and then also the men's ATP. First, the women, it is the top 8, the WTA finals, the top 8 players in the world competing in Cancun in Mexico. It's the season-ending finale in 2 groups of 4. Results from what happened in the latest games is Jessica Pegula of the USA. She beat Aryna Sabalenka. She beat her by 6-4 and 6-3 in her group. And then Elena Rybakina, she was too strong for Maria Sakkari, and the score was 6-love, 6-7 and 7-6. Then also on the men's calendar, the ATP tournament, it's the Paris Masters being played at the moment. Most of the top players in the world playing there. The world number 2, Carlos Alcaraz, is out of the tournament. He lost in the second round, and he lost to Russian qualifier. His name is Roman Sofilin, and the score there was 6-3 and 6-4. Disappointing performance by the world number 2, Carlos Alcaraz. World number one is also in the draw. He will play in the second round. That is Novak Djokovic, and he's the leading player at the moment leading into the ATP finals. That will also be later in the year. And talking about the ATP finals, quite a few players trying to get into that. And one of them, Hubert Hurkacz, he's from Poland. He's got a good season, just outside the top 8 at the moment. A good start for him as well. Difficult game playing against Sebastian Korda of the United States, and Hurkacz winning that game by 6-3, 6-7 and 6-3. Continuing international sports news with golf news, and the latest venture in golf is called the Indoor High-Tech League, and that's coordinated by Tiger Woods and Rory McIlroy, and that's going to be an indoor event that starts in January that will be played in Florida. So there will be 6 teams of 4 players each that will play in the league format. That will start 9 January 2024, and 15 of the current top 20 players on the men's world rankings will play in this league. Players that are confirmed that they will be in action there is Scotty Scheffler. He's currently the world number 1. Then also some of Europe's best in Matthew Fitzpatrick. Also Tommy Fleetwood and John Rahm that will play there, and also Justin Thomas of the USA. That will start on the 9th of January 2024. And to conclude today's international sports news, it is Formula One racing news. And the next race on the Formula One calendar will be the Brazilian Grand Prix this coming weekend. But first news from Mercedes-Benz is that they announced that their chief technical officer, that is Mike Elliott, announced that he will step down in his position. And that is also in the wake of Mercedes-Benz not winning one single race in the 2023 season so far. And Toto Wolff, the team principal of Mercedes-Benz, said that it was Elliott's own decision to step down. Elliott has been with Mercedes-Benz for 11 years, a very successful time as well. Mercedes-Benz won 8 Constructors' Championships in that 11 years. That was from 2014 till 2022. And also many individual titles, and it was Lewis Hamilton that won 6 titles, also Nico Rosberg that won a title. That was all in the time when Elliott was the technical officer, the chief technical officer for Mercedes-Benz. Currently, Mercedes-Benz struggling, no win for the season. At the moment, it is Max Verstappen leading the points table with 491. He already won the title for 2023. Then it is Sergio Perez on 240 points, and then Mercedes-Benz Lewis Hamilton on 220. In 8th position is the other driver, George Russell, for Mercedes, 151 points. And in the Constructors' Championship also, it is Red Bull leading 731 points, and Mercedes-Benz second on 371 points. That's the international sports news for today. Hope you have a great sport day, and we talk international sport again tomorrow. Goodbye.
Neo Paints has established a 67-year Namibian legacy, creating personalized paint solutions that blend quality and innovation for the Namibian people. We pride ourselves in being a 100% Namibian-owned company, investing in our country and our people by employing and empowering true Namibians. With every brushstroke, Neo Paints commits to our quality guarantee and always delivering a coat of excellence. At Neo Paints, we always stay true to our country. We are as Namibian as you.
We are so excited to be kickstarting your morning with entertainment. Everything was happening during this past weekend.
Yes.
Exciting news.
Wow, no, she was killing it already.
In my opinion, I don't see anything wrong with him serving the full term.
As well as keeping you informed on the issues that you need to know happening in and around our country.
Well, that's all the time we have for you today on Africa Good Morning. But before we say goodbye, let's take a look at the highlights from today's broadcast. Mastermind of foiled Gambia coup jailed for 12 years. Bolivia severs ties with Israel. Others recall envoys over Gaza. Biden approves largest offshore wind project in US history.
And of course, Manchester United loses 3-0 at
Newcastle.
home to Newcastle, knocking them out of the Carabao Cup as the defending champions. Okay. All right. From Diana Master and Ashwin Berry, have a better Wednesday. Well, better Thursday than Manchester United is having. Cheers.